Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi guys, this is Matthew from the SDA Housing Podcast. I'm here with Minh from the office and Rob from down south in Melbourne. And today we're talking about manufactured housing, the unique product that our builder Elton Homes is doing down south. How you doing, guys?
They're great, Matt. And
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Awesome, yeah. Excellent. So first topic, obviously, what's the difference between traditional housing and manufactured housing? Well,
Okay, traditional housing, everyone will be aware, it's a standard build contract with a builder that takes 9 to 12 months to build the property. They're doing it all on site.
12 to 15 months now.
Okay, 12 to 15 months. Building all on site. So when you go and see a built-in home, you'll see the slab laid and you see the frame go up and you see the walls and the bricks and then obviously the internals and then the house is finished. And that does take a significant time. So all done on site, all the labourers are there. Payment from an investor is gradually through the build contract in stages, 5, 10, 15, 25, 50%. So that's the way probably 90-95% of all builds traditionally have been done.
I've been done up to this point, yeah.
Now with new technologies and new ways of builds, companies are looking at alternatives. So manufactured housing through Elton, they're not regarded as a builder. The actual houses are built in pods in the factory. So if you can picture the factory, a big open factory in Brisbane in Melbourne, you have on the floor 6 different pods for the 6 different parts of the house being manufactured. It only takes a week in the actual factory to complete. Then they're all put onto the back of big semi-trailers, taken out to the site of where the land is, and then a crane will take those pods off the site, place them on the block after they've done the footings, and they do it in a non-traditional way. They're not using the standard waffle pod slabs. They're using a different, more advanced structure. They then literally put those pods together, a little bit like putting Lego together, and literally 1 to 2 weeks process when the house is on site.
Yep. Excellent. Awesome.
Now, this is different from modular and prefab.
So what's the difference?
Yeah, so to a normal investor, they'll think this is the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, under the building regulations, modular and prefab, and you can think about caravan sites and retirement villages where they put up these small little units. They're nowhere near the same level of build quality. The manufactured homes are the equivalent, if not higher grade build quality to the traditional homes being built on site. That has a couple of significant advantages. One that Elton mentioned was in financing. Generally, when you build a modular house, so like a kit home, you can only get 40 to 50% financing from the bank. Whereas with the manufactured option through Elton, it's considered exactly the same as the residential build option where you can obviously borrow 80 to 90% potentially through the lender.
From a physical point of view, the modular homes are 450 millimetres off ground, and these are 150 millimetres off ground.
Yeah.
The modular ones, they would have slabs as well, wouldn't they?
They can, yeah. Sometimes they have a slab, sometimes they use pillars and piers. It just depends on obviously the land and the system they're using.
So is the word prefab part of this discussion or not really?
Not with what we're doing through Elton.
So what is prefab versus?
Well, prefab, I guess, is when you think about that, you're just putting it together in a factory, prefabricated, but it's not to the same high quality.
Yes.
When it's a manufactured home with Elton, you think of it more like a commercial grade build in terms of quality. So it's full steel construction.
Yeah.
Prefab won't be. Prefab might be timber, or it might be low grade cladding. Just a far lower standard and grade of materials that are used in the property compared to the manufactured housing option.
Matt, when we were there a month ago, all three of us, we were on the factory floor.
Yeah.
You could tell it wasn't a cheap average build.
Of course not. Yeah. So all the materials seemed high quality. I haven't actually seen a modular house, but I've just heard things. So, but this is very high quality.
And you walked into the concept one in the car park, remember that?
And it's very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
You put them together, 6 of them.
Yeah.
The finished product was very good. You couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, and what struck me when we walked into that finished product, particularly in Melbourne, and it was freezing that particular day, was the level of insulation was really good. It wasn't losing any heat and getting any cool.
As well as that, with the steel frames you're looking at, it's a lot stronger as well.
It's wider frames as well.
Yep.
Double insulation. It was a robust house, obviously, for you, I guess.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, to give you an idea, just in terms of what we didn't realise, but now are very confident dealing with this particular manufacturer, is that there's a lot of very high-end inclusions in the house as well, like 2.7 metre ceilings. It's got ducted aircon throughout with zone control. That's $20,000 extra compared to traditionally what we'd be looking at in the sector and for the average investment home. They're looking at putting in induction cooktops eventually as well.
European appliances.
European appliances.
Very high quality.
Yep. Full steel construction. There's no timber at all.
No brick.
In this house. No brick.
No concrete.
The walls are fully insulated as well, which is what we talked about a minute ago in terms of it will give better heating and cooling throughout the year, so it'll reduce costs in that regard as well.
Absolutely.
Fibre cement sheeting. They use thicker frames, thicker impact boards, particularly that's to do with robust.
Yes.
So the actual walls are stronger in case anyone wants to potentially do any damage.
Yep.
Fully soundproofed as well. So you can't hear anyone screaming outside or any noise that's going to obviously come in. Stone bench tops throughout, full tiling as well, including the garage.
And that's very unique.
Yeah, that's unique.
Wow.
No carpet, which people will find unusual, but that's specific to the robust house to avoid any issues.
Can you explain to the listeners why full tiling for the garage?
You have full tiling because if you had a client who might have issues with self-harm or doing harm to others under a robust,
or another breakout room.
Yeah, or another breakout room, if they've got the carpet flooring, potentially they can rip that up and then use that as a weapon or use that to do harm.
Yeah, but the garage, to treat that garage as another breakout room.
Yes, so it's an extra area if the car's not in there.
Yes.
And usually with most builds, the garage is just the standard concrete floor. Now, very unusual to have it sealed or have it tiled.
Yep, absolutely.
But it works. It works very well. So the design and inclusions have been put together with the builder and the SDA assessor to be certified. So lots of SDA ready for pre-certification or approval, subject to the approval of the house, obviously. And when the house is complete, it will be inspected and certified again. Yes.
So in terms of, I suppose, the extra layer of security.
Well, before we go, let's talk about risks first. So what's the risk of a normal builder versus the risk of this kind of manufactured housing? Then go back to security after. So
risks. Well, the topical risk at the minute is obviously the construction industry is struggling. Costs of materials are going up, and they're continuing to going up. So the biggest risk here is time.
Time risk.
And when we say time risk, what Elton are doing is that they're purchasing all the materials for the house, including all the inclusions up front, and then they sit in their warehouse. So you haven't got time risk with waiting 3 months to get the materials, and they could go up another 20 or 30%. So that actually gives Elton more security going forward for their profitability, because they know definitively what this house is going to cost. currently with builders in Melbourne. They're doing fixed price contracts. They might have done them 18 months ago. It's currently now looking like it's costing them $100,000 extra per build, and that could go up even more in the next 6 months. And that's a huge risk.
The rules of construction is you've got to have profitability.
Correct.
Otherwise, you shouldn't be trading.
Yes, and a lot of them are doing builds at a loss, which doesn't make sense at the minute.
I read an article in the Australian Financial Review that there's like 17,000 or 20 or 30,000, 70,000 builders. I don't know, the numbers are huge, right? Construction companies and builders in Australia, small to large, and half of them are not running a profit. They are theoretically insolvent on piece of paper.
Correct.
And that's just.
And the other thing to bear in mind, the ones that are being prudent to ensure their financial security going forward, and we've spoken to a few recently, are currently pausing doing any more sales at the minute. They're actively not trying to do builds until they've got more certainty with costs going forward and that they know that they're going to be profitable. So it makes it hard to find a builder to build a home at the minute.
And in the best case scenario, I feel like for a builder, if you've got a small margin and you might be moving forward and you might have to increase your costs, that's best case scenario, I suppose, for a builder to avoid going broke, which obviously for the client, that's not a good thing.
So in the news, on Facebook, all the big topic of conversation in Australia is, are these builders about to increase their prices midway through construction? It's happening everywhere.
And they will if they can.
We hear the news, it's everywhere. It's every day somewhere. Will the builder survive? Poor mum and dad has bought a house, and then we get a 50 grand increase in price. Shocking stories. We understand both sides, and this is the reality of risk. The time risk, finance risk, supply risk, labour risk. That's traditional. Now, over to manufactured housing. What are their risks?
Well, they haven't got the same time risk as we talked about. They haven't got the supply risk. That's fixed because they're buying the materials up front, and the whole process from go to woe literally is not much more than a month. 3 months in total from the point your client might commit, but only a month in terms of the build quality. So the risk is lower there. They still theoretically could get into financial trouble down the track if they mismanage the business, but they're not subject to those external risks. The
window of time is so small that those big risks you're referring to are not, they're outside that window.
Yeah, correct.
Because construction time is really 5 to 7 days in the factory, and then 7 days delivery and on site. There's really a 14-day turnaround time to put it all together.
Yeah. And the other thing that Elton had mentioned to us, being classed as a manufacturer rather than a builder, they've actually got readier access to supply of all these materials than a builder has. So they can get the materials quicker at a better price than what a builder currently can, which is...
Explain to our listeners why they have that special relationship with supply. Why is that?
I think it's just because they're classed as a manufacturer, not a retail builder, so they've got different contracts and supply chains in place that gives them priority access to those materials, such as the steel.
As people are saying, they bring the commercial world into the residential
world. Correct.
Yeah.
So in terms of contracts, I mean, how does contracts
wait. Risks, extra layer of security that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
So following on from the topic of risk, what is these layers of security that was discussed?
Okay. What investors will need to understand, and we'll make it perfectly clear when we're talking to you, is that it's not a standard build contract you're signing here. It's actually a manufacturing agreement contract. So the extra security is in the case where the house and land packages are being supplied together, the land that Elton are building on for the investor and then on selling it to them, they already own, fully unencumbered. So there's no first mortgage bank involved. So in order to buy the materials up front, Elton obviously need funds. So you need a $250,000 deposit.
Not negotiable?
Not negotiable for this particular build to pay for all the materials.
Payable on signing.
Yep, payable on signing. So an investor's going to think, okay, well, what's the risk? If I'm paying $250,000 up front without seeing anything back, what is the risk to me? What the contract allows for is that Elton give you the ability to apply a caveat over that particular block of land.
And what does a caveat mean?
A caveat is just a legal document where the client gets priority access if something goes wrong to the value of that land. So they can basically, through a legal process, if it ever got to that, enforce the caveat in court and recover their $250,000 via the sale of the land. So in the land that we're talking about in these areas, it's probably worth $450,000. So you're essentially fully covered in the worst case scenario. You've also then got still the builder's warranty insurance. So traditional builders all have builder's warranty insurance of 6.6 years. This applies in this instance as well. So again, if there was issues with the build or the process, you can claim on that. And then as we touched on, you've also got the ability to go to the federal court and a court and enforce your rights there.
So it's a legal right. That's
correct.
Yeah. So legal right, caveat of the land, and insurable building via builder's warranty. And as I mentioned, even if they were to go to court, which takes months to deal with, right?
Yeah, it's all going to be finished
It's
anyway.
going to build anyway. Yeah.
Because you don't have that time risk.
Exactly. So time risk there. Now that's the layer of risk there. Three layers of protection against those risks there. And moving on to, you mentioned contracts. Yeah.
How do contracts look in comparison to a regular build versus what we're doing with manufactured
So
housing?
normal build contracts would be a land contract and a building contract. Everyone knows what they are. It's simple. Buy the land, engage the builder, build the house. They're the two contracts. However, well, in this
particular, it's basically a manufacturing loan agreement contract. Similar to, for those of you who might know, I could recall. So it'll be the one contract, not the two. As we mentioned, it doesn't have stage payments incorporated into the contract. It has the $250,000 up front. Then the balance is paid when it's built and on site, and you'll probably talk about how the financier will hold back 15% of that final payment until all the certifications and documents are ticked off.
So certificate of occupancy is by the council, and the SDA certification by the NDIS. So once those two certificates are issued, at the very end, will the funder, this particular funder, release the last 15% of the payment. So $250,000 first on signing, then probably 2 weeks later is the 85% less $250,000, that amount there, and the last part is a 15% payment. There are 3 payments there to this particular funder. It must be noted that the banks don't do, this is a very unique bill process, and it requires a very unique and different funding solution. You just can't go to the bank and ask for this kind of money for full payment in 3 weeks. It's not going to happen, right?
No, correct. The structure is specific to this particular lender, which is specific to Elton.
Yes.
And also the other thing we haven't mentioned is that Elton, being a manufacturer, is a wholesale supplier. We've got an exclusive deal with you to be able to provide these to your clients.
And they represent their parent company as well.
Yeah.
So does that cover the contract? Oh yeah. Also, there's 2 scenarios here when they own the land versus when they don't own the land.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the contract setup would be if the client brings the land before they do the
Well, they're still paying the $250 up front for the materials, and obviously it goes from there. And now talking to a couple of alternative funders as well to come up with structures. So that's, you probably know better, but that's still to be partly finalised, correct?
So if any of our listeners have blocks of land around Melbourne and Greater Melbourne, and they would like to explore the idea of robust only manufactured housing, then we can definitely help out. No HBS, no FA, fully accessible, none of that yet, only 6 months, 12 months, 7 months away from the top there. But now it's only robust, and they must have lending approval with this particular lender we work with. You can't
so transfers over.
Yeah, it can't be another lender, because at the end of the day, you've got to have a funder or a wholesale lender who will play by these rules.
And understand these rules.
Yeah, so we've done the last 4 months with one particular funder who agreed to it. No one else will agree to this. So we've got to have. So if you want to block a land in Werribee with NAB, you have to refinance that over to this new lender, plus have 250k cash, plus have pre-approval before we engage, this manufacturer. That's the rules. There's no negotiation because they order everything so quickly and they build so quickly. They want full payment up front. That's the way it is.
Correct. And might be worth touching on too the type of land that they can build on based on our conversations with them. A couple of advantages over some of the traditional builders in the sector. There's a little bit more flexibility with the fall and fill on the land that will allow this particular home to be put on there compared to a traditional builder. So that's one tick. Also can potentially look at knockdown rebuilds or infill sites as well. Now that obviously will be specific to the site. So for instance, it can be problematic if there's overhead power lines in a traditional area. Because remember, we were talking about bringing them in on semi-trailers with cranes.
With cranes,
So you're not going to do this on a main road or a really busy street, but if it's a reasonably private street where you can access the front of the block with a semi-trailer and a crane, and you can potentially go over the power lines if there are some, then this particular manufacturer will look at doing those blocks. And then obviously all the new blocks on the estates, perfectly fine. Area-wise, they could theoretically do a wider area. It'll just cost a little bit more in terms of trucking and transport costs.
Insurance and warranty. So there's a traditional normal 12-month defects warranty and a 6.6-year structural warranty as well.
And they're allowed 3 weeks once on site to get everything finalised and fix up little issues with the home.
Knockdown rebuilds. That was something covered in the training session with them.
Yep.
So a traditional builder would require a year and a half to do knockdown rebuilds. With this has in the past, having
very
the long lady, permits to knock down, remove it all, and time management and all that kind of stuff. It's a year and a half, and it's costly.
Yeah.
Whereas doing it the Elton way, the manufactured housing way, 5 months to full completion. So that will help assist using their software called Cannot Build to assess whether that site can be done. They'll do the largely permits to the knockdown.
Yep.
They'll lodge the permits for the BA and get it all done at an extra fee and build the house. So total 5 months to do that compared to a year and a half traditional builder.
Yeah, and probably at a lower extra cost. And for those of you familiar with knockdown rebuilds, you probably need to budget at least $50,000 extra for all the costs. But when you think about it, because it's only literally a week, one of the biggest costs people would be frightened to know, just having the stop-go sign person at the front for when all the tradies come and they drop off the bricks traditional. That can be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 extra over time. In this instance, you're only literally having that probably for a day when the trucks initially get there. So it would significantly reduce the costs. The neighbours are probably going to be happier as well. They're not going to be waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning listening to a whole lot of tradies banging away on the house next door.
For 6 months or however long.
Yeah, within a week, bang. Done. So it's got a lot of potential advantages.
Yeah. Well, we want to be part of the robust rollout of products. Because no one's really doing it in Melbourne.
And it's such a need with the current construction market, so much need.
Speed to market is key because given the supply chain issues and lack of labourers and all that kind of stuff that are part of the whole challenges in the traditional construction industry, think about who's waiting for this. Participants, they can't wait a year and a half.
No, so it's much better.
They want to move now, right? So an example of this is there's a civil provider I spoke to a few days ago, 7 days ago. She spoke to her support coordinators, and they definitely want these two first builds coming out of the factory, not out of the ground. And the first one is one tenant for the house, one robust participant for the house. And that's 2 carers 24/7. And the SDA income is $120,000 per year.
Yeah, which is higher than we would ever quote.
We would normally quote fully 2 robust participants in a house out west in Melbourne is $99,000 a year gross income. Here, $120,000 for that.
Huge.
Yeah. So there's massive demand for. We keep on talking about robust, right? We have, and we'll keep on banging on that door all the time to bring awareness to the community that because of the lack of supply and rollout of robust NIL, improved building products, there's just the gap between demand and supply is growing every day, every month. Particularly with all the challenges of construction, right?
Yep.
And but this house can also take 3 participants as IL as well.
Yeah, so that's your fallback. And then your further fallback, as an absolute worst case scenario, is that for all intents and purposes, these Elton Homes look exactly like a normal home. So you can just rent it out on the traditional rental market. You don't have to do any refit or spend any money to convert it back to a residential property.
Yeah.
You maybe want to put a bit of carpet in or put some rugs or something on the floor. That's probably the only slight difference.
So when we started talking to this manufacturer 7-8 months ago, they realised that their inclusion and specs were almost identical to a robust home. It was just perfect to do so. And that's why the transition was very quick to come over.
And why they're focusing on that sector, essentially.
So they really want to be part of the affordable housing community and also the NDS community, and we're leading the charge with them to bring awareness to our investors and other peers about this product, which my add is only a wholesale builder. They're not a traditional retail business where it's not in their door. Hi, can we order a build? No, they don't do that. They build for their parent company. So we're lucky enough to be able to work with them and guide them through the whole process of NDS or SDA investors. That's why we're in the door there. Yeah. Matt, any final words from your point of view as to whether you talked to a lot of on the front line of our inquiries. What are your thoughts?
Build time is so big. We've just got so many people who they're either shocked or in disbelief that something can be built so quickly. And this is just, I mentioned it before, it's just so needed, particularly at the moment. Going back a few years ago, wouldn't have been that necessary maybe, but it's just such an advantage. And when we talk about speed to build, it's also from an investor standpoint, if you're making income early on, say you take a whole year versus a week or two, that's a whole year of income potentially.
Yeah, so we bring that one up to our investors. The cost may be this price, $500,000-ish.
Which is not much different to a traditional build now as well. Yeah. The gap's closed.
You get a year of income, that's really $400,000 now.
Correct.
And that's quite a good price to get in there, with certainty of product, certainty of participants moving straight away, and getting in before the CPI inflation revisions and the price revisions as well for that.
Yeah, the great thing here is that we're helping people build the best home possible for the money that they've got available. So that's where we're giving them advice on where based on their budget in the shortest time possible now. And we're trying to ensure that they get the most income they can at the least risk of vacancy going forward.
So I think we're different, Matt, from our peers, right, who sort of do what we do, is that we are also very active in procuring participants to help out our housing providers we work with.
Yes, absolutely.
By networking with our supervisors. So, we're not the only company in Australia doing what we do, but I think we're unique in the fact that we're actively out there in the community, at the expos, at the events, at the workshops, webinars. We network, we meet the providers. We're really active ourselves because we know that not every provider can guarantee participants, right? We can assure, and the provider can assure participants, but we've still got to have that plan B, C, and D to fill the house up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the key there, because Rob, our question of these supervisors who are very busy.
Yeah, very hard to get a hold of.
Yes.
And hard to trust that what they say they'll do. But the more we're dealing with, the less risk of any vacancies going forward, and the more we network, the stronger our relationships are getting.
It's not they're being rude.
They're just flat out.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's hard when our clients and investors say, well, show me that you've got the participants, right? We can sort of show them, verbally give to them the assurances. Until we start rolling out completed houses in these areas in Melbourne and fully tenanted with these providers supporting us, and we're showing the track record, which we start doing now. It takes time to win the trust of the supervisors. and the housing providers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we are active out there, yeah. But yeah, so Rob, any last words of advice, regarding people considering traditional versus manufacturing and what we're talking about today?
Just to obviously have a good thought about what we've talked about, what the advantages are. It may not be for everybody, but I think that more and more it is a viable option going forward, and particularly in the current environment. Just speak to us. We'll look at your individual situation and give you help on what we think is the best path for you to take with this.
But one last thing, Victoria. I mean, Greater Victoria. Victoria's quite big, it's quite a large state.
Yep.
So the product can be shipped.
Yeah, it can. Obviously, as we mentioned, it will cost more. So if you're going a couple of hundred k's, and you're probably looking at another $20,000 to ship it. But it does give us a wider scope now where we can build, because as we've discovered over the last year, we've been very frustrated with. We've found it very hard to come up with appropriate builders in different regions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's been really hard to lock down. So now at least we've got this option that we could roll out pretty much everywhere where demand's needed.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining me and talking about Elton Homes and their unique product. And we'll be in future obviously discussing this more, but feel free to just give us a call or inquire, send us an email if you want more information about this topic. And we'll join you guys next time.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.